Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I did not plan to spend the night of the override inside a secure conference room at the SkyGrid Northern Coordination Center, but I was the on-call engineer for Constellation Segment HSNO, which meant my phone kept ringing even after the building alarm cut from blue to amber. Half the team had already left for home. Snow started before noon and built into a steady sheet across the ramp and the antenna yard. The wind was light from the northwest. It should have been an ordinary winter evening in Tromsø, Norway, where our ground station sits on a hill with a clean view of the northern sky, but the telemetry on my screen kept doing things we had never trained for. Attitude solution drift repeating on 3125, I said, reading out the numbers while the room microphone recorded the call automatically. Star Tracker A is being ignored, and B is taking priority even though the quality flag is worse. A gyro bias estimate has been frozen for 1 hour 12 minutes. On the far wall, a projector showed the whole grid of solar reflector satellites as thin green arcs sliding around Earth. We call them mirrors, but they are multi-layer reflective films mounted on tension booms. Each satellite rides a small carbon frame with a slow-turning gimbal. Hall-effect thrusters push them in millimeters per second. They fly in polar sun-synchronous orbits at about 550 kilometers, with local time of the ascending node near 6 a.m., so they see the sun for most of each pass over high latitudes. We fold them so they can direct light to Arctic and subarctic communities during deep winter, not like full daylight, but enough flux to extend work hours by 2 or 3 extra hours in the evening. The planning software balances power and agricultural needs with wildlife and circadian effects. I joined SkyGrid 3 years ago after a decade in flight dynamics at the European Space Operations Center in Darmstadt. Our team is a mix of orbital mechanics specialists, attitude control engineers, power systems people, software safety officers, and 2 former air traffic controllers who manage handovers between ground stations. At 5:19 p.m., the Grid Manager application threw a red box over segments G-Pol and H-SNO, then another over I-SIB. Command reconciliation failure, the log said. A second later, the pass plan evaporated from my schedule, replaced with a static message. Access revoked by priority process. We have priority processes with signed keys for disaster cases. They're supposed to allow national emergency agencies to direct light in the event of fires, rescue operations, mass casualty events, or blackouts so people can move safely. The instruction set is narrow. That night, the key used was not one of those. Its signature was valid, but the key ID did not match the registry. In the room, it was only me, Daria from Power Systems, a shift supervisor who stared at the projector and did not say anything, and a junior analyst named Timo who had never seen a red box persist more than a minute. The phone to my right was already on hold with Goddard. I could hear a different team arguing through the speaker. In the hallway, I heard the night manager call building security and ask for a sweep. Nordic Telecom's fiber link showed normal traffic. The backup microwave link was up. We ran infrared cameras on the antenna field for intrusions. Nothing. I pushed the soft key to unmute Goddard. We're seeing a revocation across HSNO and neighbors, I said. Your hub sees the same? Yes, a woman said. It walked from G-Pol to H-SNO to I-SIB over the last 6 minutes. Same signature. We're trying to identify the issuer. It's not in the US, EU, or UN registry. Who can broadcast priority without a registered key? I asked. On paper, no one, she said. On paper. We are trying local inhibit, Daria said quietly. She had a second keyboard under the desk that controls a hardened terminal disconnected from our corporate network. It runs the fallback scripts that were tested in live sims every quarter. I can transmit blind stop for the next pass on 3121 through 3128 when they rise. 4 minutes. Hold until we're approved by legal, said the supervisor. His voice shook. If we fire a blind stop against a signed command, we'll trigger audit flags. I already triggered them, I said. We need to stop the override. He stared at me. He looked like he had not slept well this week. None of us had. For a month, we had recalibrated orbits and changed pointing schedules to compensate for a dimming trend that was not global and not seasonal. The sun's total irradiance measured by spacecraft stayed within agreed tolerance. Yet ground solar farms from Spain to Japan reported falling output when clouds and aerosols were not the cause. Sky radiometers saw a decline in direct normal irradiance during certain windows as if something upsun was absorbing or scattering light. The pattern was not consistent with any known dust cloud or cometary debris. It moved with the planets in a way that looked engineered. Our mirrors had been intended to help the northern cities through winter, not to be a shield against something that eats daylight, but here we were. At 5:25 p.m., the screen flashed. Access revoked spread to JLA and KBA. That meant Alaska and the Bering sector. I tapped the technical chat and saw messages stack from our colleagues in Fairbanks and Longyearbyen. Our TLEs, the two-line elements that define the orbit sets we use in predictions, were unchanged. So was the uplink IP, which meant the commands had not come in over our public network. The only way to push that many satellites was to broadcast from our own uplink stations or a partner's, or from an aircraft or ship with the right gear, which is not cheap or stealthy. New audio, said the supervisor, pointing to the ceiling speaker. The government broadcast cut in. It's a standard text that they can send over terrestrial radio, but we mirror it into public safety channels. It said, "Emergency management confirms that SkyGrid has initiated a controlled recalibration. Do not be concerned if evening brightness varies. There is no threat to the public. Official updates will be posted hourly." I muted it and said, "We didn't initiate this." "Legal says do not transmit blind stop," the supervisor said, reading his screen. "We are to collect logs and wait for central command. The message claims to be from a classified authority." I looked at Daria. She looked back at me. Timo stared at his hands. The next event was not a message but the absence of one. We maintain heartbeat packets with each satellite. They carry basic health telemetry even when we are not in active pass. At 5:32 p.m., heartbeats from 3,119 through 3,130 went silent at once. No degradation. Just off. The satellites were still there. The radar in Kiruna saw their cross-sections on the previous pass. Our downlink monitors saw open channels. They simply stopped talking. "Someone pushed a kernel image," I said. "They flashed a new flight software or a bootloader." "That would require physical access to the secure repo," Daria said, "or a previously signed image waiting for a trigger." "Either way," I said, "we are not in charge." At 5:41 p.m., the private phone at my left vibrated. It's my hardware token line, encrypted end-to-end. I rarely receive calls on it. The screen showed an Oslo number. I answered. A man's voice said, "You do not know me. I work within an agency that watches deep space assets. I'm calling from a mobile line parked outside your fence so my signal looks local. You can keep this to yourself, or you can put me on speaker. Your choice." "Who are you?" I said. "I'm the person who saw a memo you weren't meant to see," he said. "It says a biological shade structure has been detected between Earth and Mars. It is growing." I put him on speaker. I do not like secrets. I prefer a log. We are being overridden by an unsigned priority key, I said. If you know something, state it clearly. Keep assumptions separate from facts. Fact, he said. Spectral telescopes on La Palma and Mauna Kea see an absorption pattern with biological pigment signatures during specific alignments. It's not a single object, it's filamentary. Think of a web. It drifts near one of the Lagrange points between Earth and the Sun at times, and then you do not see it because it is not reflective in visible bands. It consumed dust and gas. Its structure shows growth edges. Another fact, several governments ordered the sky grid to remain available for day-length extension, power support, and signal relay if nightfall extends. I believe whoever is overriding your schedule is attempting to hardlock satellites into specific sun-pointing geometries to provide illumination corridors or to reduce glare during tracking observations of this object. The memo uses the phrase biological shade. I do not know if intelligent motives exist. I know that if nightfall becomes permanent, crop yields will fall within weeks and we will freeze in months. Why call me, I asked. Why not call Central Command? I'm not supposed to know any of this, he said. I worked in spectrum management, not exobiology. My access is accidental. I'm in my car. I can see your antenna yard. Snow is falling. If you cannot stop the override, you should prepare for the loss of control of your segment and possibly of the entire grid. I am trying to preserve one channel for independent action if a decision is made to recover control. What can we do without keys? I asked. You can still act at the RF front end, he said. If you can change polarization, frequency offsets, or power grip at your station, you can disrupt the signal that carries the override to your satellites. Not globally, but for your segment. The supervisor shook his head. We are not authorized to interfere with the priority stream. Then you can watch while others make decisions, the man said. You will stand by while someone with a key you cannot see decides where your satellites point. You will tell the public that you are recalibrating while the world darkens. Daria whispered, We can change the chirp on the uplink to cause a bit slip if the modems expect a specific preamble. We tested that for resilience. It would be logged, the supervisor said. Everything is logged, I said. In a week, none of this will matter if the crop lights are gone. We need facts, not our names preserved on a perfect record. Sir, I said back to the speakerphone, if we block the stream, what then? We still don't have our own keys. You will have preserved a subset of your fleet from being flashed, he said. If you can keep them on your own software, you can use older ground scripts to talk to them. You need line of sight from a station with physical access. That means you, Longyearbyen, or Fairbanks. Get a dish on a mobile platform if you have to. Who are you really? I asked. Name. Call me Henrik, he said. It's my real name. I will send you a message with ephemeris for the growth front of the structure if you want it. If you have an optical instrument you can verify, I have nothing else. I need to hang up. The line went dead. The supervisor swallowed and said, If we do this, we break policy. If we do nothing, we become a relay for whoever did this, I said. And if he is wrong, then this is still an unauthorized override and we're expected to mitigate it. Timo said, I'll take the blame if you need me to press the button. You won't, I said. Daria, prepare the chirp mismatch on 5B. Do not transmit yet. I will document the rationale in the log. I typed a short note in plain language. At 1745 local, we observed an unauthorized override of satellite control across HSNO and adjacent segments. Heartbeats ceased on multiple SATs, consistent with flight software changes. To preserve safety and prevent uncontrolled changes, we will temporarily disrupt the inbound control stream while keeping telemetry. This is within our failsafe plan for unknown commands. Ready, Daria said. Transmit, I said. She pressed the physical transmit switch. The uplink chain shifted. The modem injected a frequency error of a few parts per million and a preamble alteration. Normally trivial, enough to make the receiving modem think the signal was noise if it expected perfection. On the projector, the green arcs kept moving. Heartbeats came back on 3,121 and 3,122. 2 did not return. 3,125 and 3,129 remained quiet. 2 were already flashed, Daria said. We caught the rest. Now we are in the game, I said. We need to get a back channel to anything that still talks in the old way. By 6:10 p.m., the building director arrived. He read the incident log with a long face and 2 deep lines across his forehead. I thought he would suspend me. Instead, he said, "Close the blinds. We keep this room on limited access. Central is in a spiral. Until they tell us to stand down and show proof that the authority is legitimate, we keep our fleet alive. Plan a path to independent control for a subset." We need hardware, I said. A dish we can park somewhere that is not on the corporate network. We own a mobile uplink trailer for emergencies in Kiruna, he said. It's old. It was meant for satellite news use before we refitted it years ago. It still has a hydraulic mast and a 2-meter dish. It fits on a hitch. I can drive, I said. Take Timo, he said. He knows the authorization lists. Take the token keys. Use the maintenance back road. Snow's only going to get worse. I'm not a driver, Timo said. Then he straightened his shoulders. But I can navigate. I'll keep the chirp mismatch up, Daria said. You move fast. We loaded a Pelican case with the patch modems, LNA, a power inverter, a small diesel generator, 2 jerry cans, a roll of Cokes, an RF power meter, a thermal camera, and a laptop with a clean install that had never touched any network except the air-gapped lab. We brought 2 satellite phones, flare guns for polar bear deterrence, first aid kit, spare warm clothes, and a bag of ration bars. I took my personal insulated jacket and a pair of winter boots with crampons. I carried a small backpack with a multi-tool, a headlamp, spare batteries, a laminated map, and a handheld radio on our maintenance band. Outside, snow came in diagonal sheets. The antenna yard lights made cones in the air. The mobile trailer sat under a tarp. We hitched it to a diesel pickup, tied the cables, tested brake lights, and rolled out through the back gate. The main road had been cleared, but the maintenance track that cuts behind a low ridge was still covered in fresh snow. The truck had good winter tires. We climbed the hill and felt the back end drag as the trailer hit a drift. I kept the speed steady and the steering soft. Timo held the map and called the fork. Our target was a turnout on high ground with clear sky where we had line of sight to the north for several hours and down into the west later. As we drove, the broadcast returned. It said, "The Energy Management Network will be adapting schedules across northern regions. Municipal authorities will communicate local changes. Please continue normal activity. There is no cause for alarm." At 6:45 p.m., the satellite phone rang. Daria. "Good and bad news," she said. "Good, our stream block is holding. Bad, Central is trying to reprimand us. They want us to remove the chirp mismatch. They said the override is part of a global plan to optimize light distribution." "Do they have the key ID?" I asked. "They say it's classified but valid," she said. "Ask them to show us a cryptographic proof of authority with a revocation we can verify," I said. "If they cannot, we stay steady. And Daria, one more thing. A person named Henrik may send ephemeris. If you see it, call me." "You got a name?" she said. I did, I said. It may be real, it may not. Our turnout was a wide gravel area used by telecom maintenance crews. It had a view over the fjord. A line of spruce shielded the north wind. The snow eased as we arrived. The sky had a thin pane of cloud, but there were breaks. I parked the truck, set the brake, and we stepped into the cold. The trailer mast rose on hydraulic whine. Timo helped swing the dish. We aligned it on the polar pass we expected in 21 minutes using a handheld compass and a clinometer. The laptop came up and the modem reported carrier acquisition on our downlink frequency when the satellite rose. Telemetry came in. The old terminal protocol responded with a prompt. It meant the flight software version on this bird still ran our code, not the new one. If I can talk to one, I said, I can send it a retask to adjust its crosslink schedule to talk to its neighbor on our channel only. We can build a little island. What if Central crushes us? Timo asked. Then we tried, I said. I typed the retask command. The satellite responded with a time window. It meant the change was accepted but would not take effect until the crosslink schedule hit. I sent the same to 2 adjacent birds. We waited. My hands went numb. I flexed my fingers. Timo held the thermal camera to check the LNA temperature. The delicate part of this work is not heroic. It is turning bolts slowly and waiting for windows of time while the Earth rotates and the spacecraft move. It is making sure your units are right. Phone, Timo said, handing me the sat phone. Henrik? I asked. Yes, he said. I'm sending a text with coordinates. If you have binoculars, you can see it when the geometry is right. It will not be obvious. You will think it's a cloud edge. It is not. Put a spectrometer on it, and you will see an absorption in the blue-green band like chlorophyll, but not exactly. We do not know the pigment. We only know it matches biological absorption curves. I cannot send the system that made the detection because it is not mine. Thank you, I said. Another fact, he said. A launch window is being prepared from Andoya. They will send a sounding rocket with a particulate collector to the upper atmosphere. The plan is to see if dust or spores are falling. It is not public. It will be soon. Do they think it is raining? I asked. They do not know, he said. Some models say the structure could release fine particles that drift toward Earth when it aligns. The signal at high altitude could be weak but measurable. And the override? I asked. I think they want your mirrors to bend light into specific corridors at night so they can image against a dark background, he said. Or they want to turn off your mirrors to stop adding stray light. The memo was confused. It read like several agencies arguing in one document. International, unclear authority. Please be careful. If you need to move equipment or personnel to Svalbard, do it before the air transport halt. What halt? I asked. I expect it within 24 hours, he said. They will claim weather. Maybe it will be weather, maybe not. He hung up again. He did not give me a number to call him back. By 8:05 p.m., we had 3 satellites on our private channel. Not completely private. A determined entity could still reach them from a compatible transmitter. But we had changed their crosslink keys and, more importantly, we had an alternate set of pass plans we could load without going through the grid manager. Timo kept careful notes by hand, the way we do when we know logs can be pulled. I set a light beam schedule that keeps a corridor over northern farms that rely on winter greenhouses. Not full power, just enough to extend photosynthesis for another hour. It would cost propellant if we kept it forever. We did not know if we had to keep it forever. At 8:30 p.m., the clouds opened. I pointed my binoculars toward the coordinates Henrik sent. The angle placed it near the sun's direction, but the sun was under our horizon. What I saw was a dark band across a field of stars, too straight to be a jet contrail, too soft to be a satellite trail. It looked like the edge of a thin cloud that moved differently from the rest of the sky. I do not trust my eyes for this. I had Timo hold the little spectrometer we use for calibration and point it with a lens at the same part of the sky. The device is not meant for astronomy. It is meant for LED arrays and lamp diagnostics. Still, it produced a curve. I saved it. Then the clouds closed. "We need better instruments," Timo said. "We need time," I said. The night deepened. We ran the generator for warmth and to keep the mass control from freezing. We took turns walking to keep our blood moving. At 9:12 p.m., my phone vibrated with a message that made my hand cold. It was a copy of an internal note from Central Command. It began with a bland statement about harmonizing command keys across regions. Then, in the third paragraph, it said that by order of a multinational task force, all mirror operations would be suspended for 36 hours while scientific measurements were taken, with exceptions allowed for life safety operations to be approved by a panel. There was a line: "Do not attempt to reactivate outside the review process." "You saw it?" Daria texted. "Yes," I wrote back. "They're asking me to remove the chirp mismatch," she wrote. "They say we are interfering with science." "We are preserving food and heat," I wrote. "Hold as long as you can. Do not provoke. If they order you, follow their written order. Meanwhile, we have an island of 3. I will try to add more." "Be careful," she wrote. "People are scared." At 10:20 p.m., another call came, not from Daria and not from Henrik. It was my older sister in Poland in Warsaw, a teacher. She was not supposed to have this number. She has ways. "Are you working?" she asked. "I am," I said. "The lights at the school were strange," she said. "Not ours. The sky was bright, and then not. Some parents said the city said to stay calm. There was a rumor that the sun is weak. That can't be true. We are dealing with a technical problem," I said. "It is not helpful to speculate." "You sound like the radio," she said. She laughed without humor. "Please come visit when you can, if you can." "I will," I said, "soon." I lied. Travel would not be easy and might be impossible. I do not like lies, but I say gentle ones to family sometimes when it keeps fear from growing. At midnight, I set pass plans for the morning. We would need a second team to relieve us. I called the director. He said he would send 2 people at dawn. He did not know if the roads would be clear. The snow eased after midnight. The wind swung north. The load on the dish arm creaked. I tightened the bolts. We kept our island. 2 days later, the news finally spoke in more detail. Not all of it true, enough that people understood that the problem was not a cloud or a volcano, and not a routine technical fault. There was a new word: shadefront. It's not a scientific term, but the press uses it. It means the moving edge of reduced direct sunlight from an object that is not a normal shadow because it is far from Earth and diffuse. Observatories posted spectra with dips at particular wavelengths. Some looked like chlorophyll A and B. Others did not. Some researchers argued it could be a new kind of complex organic polymer produced by abiotic chemistry. Some said micro-ice with impurities. The point was that, whatever it was, it grew in filaments measured in thousands of kilometers near places where the solar wind slows and changes direction. It formed back toward the inner planets, thin, not dense like a solid object, but enough to cut a fraction of a % of sunlight, and that fraction times an entire hemisphere at specific hours began to matter. Farmers in Spain noticed tomatoes underperforming despite cloudless days. Solar farms in Nevada saw normal output at noon and a dip late morning that did not fit their models. Temperature changes were small, but they also were not in the places at times that fit normal diurnal curves. Those who remember numbers know that a 1% change in sunlight averaged over weeks matters for plants. Those who remember history know what failed harvests can do, even when there is no panic. Fuel supplies for backup lighting were already tight. Meanwhile, Central Command truly did not want us to run mirrors without their schedule. They had a reasonable point. When you add light to a night sky, you add heat in ways you must track. You change animal behavior. You can make imaging faint objects more difficult. It is not a switch you flip without thinking. But the second reasonable point was that people needed to grow food and work. The third point was that we did not trust the override. Not the authority, not the timing, not the funny way it tried to flash our birds' brains first and ask second. So we kept building our island. By day 3, we had 5 satellites. By day 5, we had 8, and we moved the trailer twice to change our view angle and to avoid being visited by a team who might ask for our keys. We are not heroes. We did not carry illegal weapons or run checkpoints. We filled a form to borrow a second generator. We ate ration bars and drank coffee. We slept in turns, an hour at a time. We kept a schedule to send narrow beams at specific farms at specific hours. We coordinated with an agricultural cooperative through a friend who ran a greenhouse who was not supposed to know our names. Yeah, the first concrete data came from Andoya. The sounding rocket carried aerogel collectors and a small mass spectrometer. They reported organic particles at heights above the usual, with ratios of carbon and nitrogen that are not what you expect from soot or pollen. The shapes seen under microscopes in the days after were not spherical. They were irregular, with tiny branching forms. A lab at Tromsø posted a preprint that called them spore-like fragments. They did not germinate in standard media. Some did something in a high vacuum chamber with simulated solar radiation that looked like a change in color. The lab had to repeat the experiment, but others saw it too. If you wanted to imagine a biological shademaker, you could imagine a filamentous organism that uses sunlight to drive a chemical pump and grows at places where electromagnetic conditions are right. It would not be life like ours. It would be something that turned energy and dust into surface area. People asked, who put it there? No one had an answer. Some said it came with a comet. Some said an intelligent actor seeded it. Some said it is a natural thing we never saw because we never looked in the right way. I do not know. I know what I saw. I saw the insistent way the override moved through our constellation as if someone had a plan and not enough time to explain it. On the 6th day, a man in a navy jacket with a badge came to our trailer. He was polite. He brought a thermos and 2 cups. He said, "I need to ask you to hand over your keys. This is now coordinated through an international response group." "Show me an order with a cryptographic signature," I said. "I will comply if it is valid." He showed me paper. Paper is good when it carries a proper hologram and a number. But for our system, orders are digital with signatures that let us check the chain. This was a printed memo. It did not carry the technical proof. He looked tired. I looked tired. We drank his coffee and my coffee. He told me his daughter is in Tromsø and does not like the dark. I told him my sister is in Warsaw and the school is a mess. He said quietly that he understands why we did what we did. He said he would tell his boss we required a proper digital order. Then he left. In the afternoon, Henrik called again. "They will sign your order," he said. "They're not trying to punish you. They're trying to avoid a dozen groups pointing mirrors without coordination. They will allow controlled beams for agriculture in specified windows." "Who speaks for them?" I asked. "A steering group with European, American, Japanese, and Norwegian agencies," he said. "They have astronomers and grid operators. They argue. It takes hours to issue anything. That is why they tried to flash your satellites. It was faster." "Flash my satellites again," I said, "and you will get a dish with a stream block again." "I know," he said. "I told them. They did not authorize the first flash. Someone did it from a partner station with a key they should not have." "Who?" I asked. "I do not know," he said. "I think you will never know. But here's what matters. We need your island. We need a segment we can trust to follow a plan when the steering group finally agrees. Will you join if they produce a proper key?" "I will," I said, "if the plan includes hours for farms and not just astronomy." "It will," he said. "We cannot eat spectra." We worked that night on another kind of problem, not orbital, fuel. The generator sips diesel, but our runs are long. The nearest depot had a backlog of customers anxious about their heaters. The antenna farm's storage has locks and logs. We kept our consumption low. We swapped to the inverter tied to the truck engine when we could. We ran the generator only when we transmitted. The heater we used was a small safe unit. We wore our jackets inside the trailer. We slept in rotations and did not get sloppy. The following morning, the order arrived. It was properly signed. A cryptographic proof checked. The key ID matched a public registry entry that we could verify through our usual process. The plan was not perfect, but it was rational. Maintain narrow beams for agricultural areas during set windows, reduce stray light during astronomical observation windows, keep satellites in known geometry, do not flash any without explicit coordinated update windows, maintain telemetry heartbeats with additional checks. It was a compromise made by people who argued for 60 hours and finally wrote something they could all sign because they were tired enough to stop caring about their perfect clauses and start caring about the winter. I accepted the order. We removed the chirp mismatch at the station. We returned to the main control room with our trailer parked, the mast stowed, the dish tied down. I put my keys in the safe. Daria handed me a printed sheet with new pass plans. Timo took a long shower and then fell asleep in a chair with his jacket on. My part could have ended there, but I do not like stories that end in the middle where the crisis becomes a committee. The next months were not clean. Nightfall did not become permanent, but the shade front thickened at times and thinned at others. The sun grew a soft edge on certain mornings, a thing you feel more than you see. We learned to plot its predicted effect. The media posted maps with bands of reduced light like weather maps. Farmers changed planting schedules. Alaska shut some operations and moved others. Northern mines worked longer under our beams and paid penalties for light pollution into the sky because those penalties kept astronomers in the room. Greenhouses in Tromsø got a line item for mirror hours. Deer migrated in odd new patterns. Predators followed them. Human sleep patterns changed. It was not a movie. No one saw a giant thing eclipse the planet. It was a series of percentages, a list of small losses and sudden bright hours, then small gains, then another loss. People can adapt to many things when the alternative is to sit still, but people also look for meaning. Some found it in fear. Others found it in work. On a Thursday in February, I took a flight to Longyearbyen with Daria and a small team to install a secondary uplink unit with physical keys and a hard wall. We stayed in a guest house. We walked to the dish yard under a sky that looked like it was filmed at a frame rate that did not match my eyes. A smooth dark with stars that seemed too still. A sign at the airport reminded tourists not to wander outside town alone in the dark due to polar bears. We carried flares and a rifle because that is what you do there, not because we wanted to use it. We did not. We saw no bears. We saw a group of students with tripods trying to photograph the aurora through a gap in the clouds. At the station, we installed the racks and ran the fiber to the receiver hut. We tested the switch. We sent a test heartbeat packet and saw it return. The process took 12 hours with a break for soup. We slept for 4 hours and then we did another system in a different hut. It was cold. It was not dramatic. I liked it. Henrik met us at the guest house lobby on our last night. He wore a wool sweater and jeans and looked like a normal person. He sat in a chair and spoke quietly. "They will build a telescope on the moon to watch the shade front properly," he said. "They will put an optical array on a crater rim where the sun is always on the horizon. It will take years. In the meantime, they will ask you to increase mirror time for agriculture because food shortages will come not from the shade front alone, but from panic and logistics. You will become more important and more hated." "I do not want to be hated," I said. "You will be a person who decides where light goes," he said. "Even if a committee decides above you, people will point to you when their request is refused. Do the work anyway." "I will," I said. "I have a question. The word biological in your memo. Do you think it is alive?" "I think it is a thing that grows and divides and responds to energy," he said. "That is a basic definition. It does not need water, not as we know it. It needs light and dust and a certain field geometry. It may have evolved in a place we do not understand, or it may be an artifact. Either way, it is not here to save or to destroy us. It is there. We have to deal with it." I thanked him for telling me early. He said he did it because he does not like to watch people be lied to when they can handle the truth, presented with the correct units. We shook hands and went to our rooms. I slept 6 hours, the longest sleep of the week. Spring brought different problems. As the shade front moved with the geometry of the orbits and the Earth's tilt, regions that had relied on normal spring sun got less at critical times. We used mirrors mostly at night, but we experimented with narrow daytime fills when the steering group grudgingly approved. The models had to be updated. There is a difference between adding light to a greenhouse roof and shining it over a field. We built lookup tables. We issued guidance. The key thing with public guidance is to write it plainly. Do not say photo period extension when you can say extra hour of light after sunset. Do not say flux when you can say brightness. I visited my sister in Warsaw in May. I timed it between shifts and flew through Copenhagen with a last-minute ticket because schedules changed every week. Her school had plants in the windows with LED strips and foil reflectors. The students had a schedule where mornings were quiet to save power, and the city encouraged sports in the mirror hours in the evening when park paths were lit from above but indirect, like a steady twilight that let you see faces but not cast harsh shadows. She said the kids adapted. She said parents tolerated it because the alternative was to complain into darkness. We ate pierogi in a restaurant that had a sign at the door explaining its mirror hour permits. I answered questions about whether the shade front would grow forever. I said I did not know. I said we watch it and we make plans. By late summer, the steering group signed a plan for winter that included a full agricultural corridor schedule, a power support schedule for the far north, and an astronomy reserve schedule for when the shade front structure could be imaged. We also signed a contingency clause that allowed field operators to break plan if life safety demanded it, with a post-action review. That clause was not there in winter. Now it was. It existed because people did hard work and argued and kept notes. If you do your job well during a crisis, sometimes the result is a paragraph that lets the next person do their job without having to lie or cheat. The first time we used that clause was in November, when a town in northern Finland lost power during a cold snap. The night was clear. The forecast said the shade front would be thin enough to allow natural starlight. We were not scheduled to add light. The town's diesel plant failed. The grid operator asked for help. We were authorized to provide a 2-hour corridor to allow work crews to move and vulnerable people to reach the school gym where the generators worked. We pivoted 4 mirrors, one after the other. The light we aimed was a gentle band across the road network, not a spotlight. It was enough. The lights came back by morning. The review board signed off. The astronomers grumbled but did not protest because they had been there in the room when we wrote the clause. I often think about the 2 satellites we lost that first night. Their heartbeats did not return. We tracked them. They flew our orbits, silent. Later, they reappeared on a different log. They accepted new software at a coordinated window and rejoined the grid under the steering group plan. The unknown authority who flashed them never identified themselves. The keys they used were destroyed or never existed in a registry we can see. The lesson I took was not that someone acted in secret and we should be angry forever. The lesson was that some people thought that a quick unilateral action was necessary because they were afraid and could not move a committee in time. They probably felt noble. They might have been right if the only goal was to image a strange thing. They were wrong because we needed to eat. When this began, the broadcast said everything was under control. It was not. Control is not a binary. It is a set of agreements and equipment and human decisions that direct energy and information. For months, we held it together with a trailer, a dish, a chirp mismatch, a notebook, and shifts that left us with red eyes and a steady hand. Then we traded that ad hoc control for a plan people could sign and audit. I sleep better under a plan I can question with a paragraph number than under a panic solved by a hidden key. We call the thing in space many names. Shadefront, filament, web. If you ask me, I call it what it does. It reduces the light that reaches us at certain places and times. It is not a story about a monster. It is a story about units and schedules and fields and crops and people at consoles who make decisions while the snow falls, and a clock on the wall changes from 6:05 p.m. to 6:06 p.m., and you press a key that changes the direction a mirror points. Tonight, I am on shift again. The winter schedule has begun. Daria sits to my left, Timo to my right. A projector shows green arcs that have names and health codes I know the way a parent knows a child's gait on a playground. The director keeps a folder with signed keys in a safe. We run test heartbeats. The pass plan for HS&O is loaded. The agricultural corridor over a set of greenhouses in northern Norway will light at 7:10 p.m. if no one changes the plan with proper authority. The astronomers have a priority window later. The steering group chat blinks with notes about an unexpected dip in brightness over the North Sea late afternoon. We will see it and log it. We will compare to last week's curve. We will send a note to the greenhouse co-op to adjust their supplemental LED cycle by 8 minutes. I think of the first night and the words biological shade. I think of Henrik in his car by our fence and the risk he took to talk like a human being. I think of the man with the badge and the thermos. I think of my sister's class with their window plants and scheduled runs at dusk. I think of the old antenna trailer with creaking bolts and a dish that we kept aimed in a light wind. I think of the 2 satellites that went silent and then later returned. I think of the ways a city changes when you move light on purpose. At 7:10 p.m., the corridor lights. Not bright, just enough to give a row of farmers an hour of work without headlamps. The pass ends. The mirrors pivot to their next task. We check the heartbeats. We read the levels off the panel like a pilot reading a checklist. We keep the beams narrow and the logs clear. We do not use big words when small words make people understand faster. We continue to move energy from one place to another with machines that run on physics and people who run on coffee and duty. If the shade front grows, we will adjust. If it thins, we will celebrate and then keep watching. If the committee fails, we will use our claws. If someone tries to flash our satellites with a new key, we will raise our own defenses and ask for proof. If blackouts come, we will aim light long enough to keep crews moving, but not so long we burn propellant we need for next week. We will not become heroes in anyone's movie. We will remain names in a log and voices on a loop and hands on a console. I worked in SkyGrid Ops before the word shadefront existed. I will likely work here after the word is replaced by another term in a paper that explains the pigment with a Greek root. My job is the same in both cases. Keep the fleet healthy. Keep the people who need light in the loop. Keep authority honest. Keep the units right. Keep the room quiet enough that you can hear the lift motor on the mast outside when the wind shifts. Keep the coffee hot, but not so hot it shakes your hands. Keep one eye on the projector and one eye on the window because a hard freeze crack in a dish arm or a stray fox in the yard will ruin your night faster than any cosmological discovery. I do not know if Nightfall will be permanent. I know it is not tonight. I know that the difference between fear and function is a chain of small correct actions repeated by people who would rather go home but do not, because the beam schedule says someone needs an hour more at 7:10 p.m. and it is 7:07 p.m. And the pass will begin if we are ready, and it will be missed if we are not. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.